When you think about Steve, the first thing that'll come up your mind will be either back one or a traumatic memory from your last ranked match against him. This anti-Steve guide is something I wish they'd teach in school, because oh my god, this was so hard to make. I mean, getting used to video editing is one thing, getting used to Steve players totally another. So consider this anti-Steve guide your blessing. Oh, and quick note. These guides I'm doing focus less on punishment. It's all about understanding common situations, moves and mix-ups so you can stop guessing. With these videos I aim to fill the common knowledge gap many Tekken players have, me included. Because labbing the crap out of characters is hard, tedious work. Anyway, this guide is for you if you're finding yourself getting steamrolled by Steve players online because everything he does looks the same. First, there are 3 reasons why fighting Steve is such a pain. First, he kinda forces you to play small Tekken, but at the same time, using quick pokes recklessly is hella dangerous, as you will see. Secondly, his tracking and frames are really good. In fact, he's considered to be the most safe character in the game, and a lot of moves are even hard to step. Lastly, he has a lot of mix-up and mind game potential, as you'll see. And because of that, many Steve players play really different from each other, which can result in a huge mental stack and confusion for you, so it can really take some time to get good in this matchup. For this anti-Steve guide, I think it's best to look at one of his jab strings and how his stance gameplay evolves from there. Because once you understand what's about to come, I think you will have a huge aha moment in a good and a bad way. Let me explain. Steve has a lot of stances, and these stances tend to often change the frames. So it's common for Steve players to make a move that's unsafe, safe, or even advantageous on block. And to demonstrate this, we should look at one of the most common used moves in high level play, which is 2-1. Since Steve is a boxer, everything starts with his jabs, and what you'll see most often is 2-1 and also 1-1, but we'll cover this move later. In itself, 2-1 is a jailing high string that's -5 on block and +6 on hit. Not that great on block, but Steve can go into his PKB or FLK Stance. If he goes into PKB, he's +2 on block and a whopping +13 on hit. In FLK, he gets +3 on block and +14 on hit. So first rule here, if you get hit, don't mash. There's nothing you can do. Otherwise you'll pay dearly. But what if you block 2-1? For that we first need to understand these 2 stances. PKB is considered his main pressure stance, since he gets a really good low and multiple delayable hit strings. The fastest move he has out of this stance is his PKB 1+2 throw at 11 frames. So this throw becomes a frame trap after 2-1. And it's 0 on break, which is really good to know. It also leaves Steve at pretty much perfect distance for his quadricycle forward 1, also known as rocket launcher, one of his most commonly used mids, which we'll also take a look at later. Next, at 12 frames are his jabs 1-2, or the 1-1 full string, and forward 1+2. Yes, there are 12 frames, not 10. Anyways, these moves would trade with your jabs on block, but seriously, you'll never want to use jabs against Steve and PKB, as you'll see in a second. 1-1 can be delayed, and is used to fish for counter hits. Forward 1+2 is a common wall split tool, like for example, if they hit you with a sidestep back 2, they can go into instant PKB and do a forward 1+2 to get a wall split. Forward 1+2 is -5 on block and jailed, so you cannot duck it. 1-1 is a high mid string with counter properties. Next, this is PKB 2 at 14 frames. It's a high homing that parries punches but not kicks. And it's also a counter launcher at only -3 on block, so pretty good. So for example, he would go for PKB 2 and then do another PKB 2 to parry or even counter your pokes. Another common thing you will see will be PKB 1-2, which is 0 on block by the way, into PKB 2 to fish for countered or parry your jabs. On the other hand, if you use down 1, you can interrupt him, right? You could use a high crush move to beat it, or for example, if you have a quick magic 4 counter hit kick like Nina, you can even launch him in this sequence. So test out what your character can do. PKB down 1, a 15 frame low, and also one of his main low pokes. Prepare to get annoyed by this low a ton, because this move is also +2 on hit, which just means it resets the situation just like 2-1 on block. So it basically puts you into the same situation again. just with a little less health. On block, it's only -12. Peekaboo down forward 1, or the full string down forward 1, 1, 2, 1. It's a 15 frame mid, his fastest mid from the stance, and also his most common mid from Peekaboo. And this string is really delayable, and down forward 1, 1 itself is a natural combo, but down forward 1, 1 on counter hit makes the whole string a natural combo. And to make use of this, the second and the third hit of the string is quite delayable, and they're all mids, so watch out. Peekaboo down forward 1, 2 is a mid-high variation of the down forward 1, 1 string, and the main use of this move is for its tracking. Because you can sidestep left Peekaboo down forward 1, but the second hit will catch you. Of course, the weakness here is you can duck it. Then Peekaboo down forward 2, the killer 16 frame mid launcher, but it's also -10. Super important to keep in mind to punish this move as often as you can. Peekaboo back 1, 1 to 1, 17 frame string that you will see a lot at the wall, but more on that in the wall game section. Peekaboo up forward 2, 17 mid launcher that crushes highs and lows, and honestly you will see this move a lot at lower to medium ranks. Be ready to punish it at -15. Peekaboo forward to 1, also a high crush, which also can be a launcher in heat, and again this move is one more reason why you should not mash mindlessly against Steve, because after forward 2 they might just do a backswing blow to get a wall splat. Peekaboo down 2, chunky 28 frame low that's mostly used once you hesitate. It's +7 on hit and gets Steve out of Peekaboo back into neutral. On block it's only -12. Maybe you start to see why he's so safe. Then Peekaboo back 2, his mid backswing blow, which also wall splats, and on hit it's only -13. It's not launch punishable. Lastly, he also can do his heat smash from Peekaboo, which is the same one as he can do from neutral, but we will cover this later. Important here to know is, once he's in heat in Peekaboo, forget about stepping. There's no way you can step or walk this heat smash. You have to block or interrupt him. Okay, these are his moves, but what do we do against Peekaboo? Again, first don't mash against Steve here, because, let's recap, his throw is a frame trap, so you cannot interrupt it with jabs anyway, but of course it's duckable and steppable. His Peekaboo 2 will parry jabs or pokes like down forward ones, or even counter launch them, and his forward 2 also crushes highs. Now, this is why down 4 jabs and down 4 lows can stop almost all option he has, but they're beaten by Peekaboo up forward 2, his launcher, Peekaboo back 2, the backswing blow, or Steve can weave left or right and punish you, which are pretty much his sidesteps out of his strings. And this is where it gets tricky, as you'll see. You'll really have to see which moves from your character track in specific situation where Steve can weave. This is where this matchup becomes kind of disgusting. Anyway, his weave can also make your jabs and down forward ones whiff. So the rule here is use down ones or down fours to annoy Steve occasionally, to force him to adapt, and then show him who's controlling who. Because if you're lucky, they will take a huge risk and then you can launch punish them. Secondly, now of course you don't want to just down jab or down 4 all the time. Another really good option here is to sidestep or sidewalk left, because you can evade most of his options this way. Or if you have an evasive options like sidestep quarter circle back, like here, like Nina, this can be great too. Although 1-1 is way easier to step to the right. Now to stop you from walking, Steve can do Peekaboo down 1, Peekaboo 2, or the second hit of Peekaboo down for 1-2, which will catch your stepping and walking attempts. So this is why you'll see a lot of down 1s and 2s from Steve, because just by doing these moves, he limits your options a lot. And so you're forced to use either something quick like down forward 1s, down 1s, just quick pokes, right? Like as soon as you start using bigger moves, he can interrupt you with a lot of things, so you're really forced to play pokes and small Tekken, as you see. Of course, if you see a Steve player abuse a lot of down 1s, a quick low parry attempt can also be really effective here. So in summary, when Steve enters Peekaboo from 2-1, watch their habits. You could either sidestep or sidewalk left and block, or use your evasive option, or just block and see what you're doing to gather data, because honestly his down 1 isn't that much damage, or use occasional down 1s or down 4s to annoy Steve. Of course, there are several more Peekaboo transitions. The most important one will be his full crouch down for 1, which is pretty much the exact same low as PKB down 1. It also is +2 on hit and puts him into PKB. Then he has quadricycle forward 2, which is another really good chunkier low, but all the other transitions have worse frames on block and are often around 0 to -2, which means you'll have more frames to work with and to stop his offense. Forward to 1, 1 to 1, 3 2, 4 1, and albatross into PKB. Okay, this covers PKB, but what about flicker? Now, if Steve goes into flicker after 2-1, he is +3 on block instead of -5. Flicker is more of a transitional stance, if you can call it. It's really to start offense and then transition into other stances or moves. Common transitions into flicker are his quadricycle forward 1, 3-1, PKB back 1-1, 2-1, which are all -3 on block, 1 down 1 or 1-1 down 1, and down forward 1 to 1, which are 0 on block, then 1 to 1, back 1, which are -1 on block, forward 1, which is +1 on block, and 3-1, forward 1-1, which is +4 in flicker or +3 without flicker on block, and we will go over this string as well because this one is really important to know. Luckily there are way less moves in flicker to worry about, which are 1 or 1-1 or 1-1-1. Thing here, the second one already tracks your side steps, so stepping against flicker can sometimes be really annoying. Then he has 1-2, 1-1-2 or 1-1-2. This is mostly used in combos, sometimes at the wall to get a splat, but it's quite rare, and -12 on block. Then he has 1 down 1 or 1-1 down 1. This is used to catch stepping, and it also wall splats, so be cautious at the wall. And it's only 0 on block. Then he has 1 forward 1 or 1-1 forward 1. This is to catch people who like to duck in between his 1-1-1 highs. Then he has 2, a safe mid, which is also a common default option to catch people who immediately duck. Back 2, a safe high power crush at -9. You can step this one to the right, duck, or sidewalk left works as well. This is often used especially at the wall to get a splat, as you'll see. And he also has a 1+2 grab in flicker, similar to PKB. And surprisingly, if you break this throw, Steve is at -6. So use this knowledge to mix him up afterward. Here's how to deal with flicker. Since Steve is at +3 on block after 2-1, his flicker throw and flicker 1 are frame traps at I12. So expect to see these a lot. Obviously, now, if you want to step, he can catch your side steps with flicker 2, because flicker 2 tracks side step left and can only be stepped to the right. And it's safe at -5. On the other hand, if you step right, his flicker 1 tracks and can guarantee Steve a flicker 1 into albatross 2, which is guaranteed and puts Steve into heat, so not really cool. In fact, you will see this sequence a lot, because this sequence is uninterruptible. You cannot power crush or rage out in between. You can, if you're an ultra-synced, parry the second hit, but that's really hard. Also, albatross 2 is only -3 on block. What a lot of Steve players love to do afterward is to mash up back 3 to make you whiff and get a launch. But in general, just like with PKB, down 1 or down 4s are great to stop his momentum. He can of course transition to PKB instead, or weave left and right. But 90% of his stuff you can beat with down 1 or down 4 alone. You can also parry his moves, except for his throw of course, and unless he delays his timings. So see how your opponent plays and pick your strat. There's not really one answer to this. And if they tend to use weave a lot, make sure to use homing moves or pokes and strings that have tracking. Regular throws are also really good in this situation, or you can sidestep or micro dash to realign and use whatever tools you have after. One more thing about 2-1. It has a 2-1-2 variation. The last hit beats any retaliation, splats, but is -11 on block. The last hit can also be parried. Whenever he enters PKB or flicker, he can also go into his weaves, backsway or ducking stances. In fact, he can go into these from pretty much any stance and neutral. You know how I just told you to not randomly mash jabs against Steve? His ducking stance is another reason why that's not a good idea. It avoids all highs and has some nasty countered setups. It's also used as an approach tool from stances or even neutral, since Steve can cancel the stance and block immediately after. Or he can extend his ducking to various timings, kind of like wave dashing, and it's also often used after certain strings to make them safe. As for his moves, there are only 4 he has in ducking. 1, a mid that's -7 on block, take your turn afterward. You can also sidestep it to the left. 2, a high crushing launcher, -14 on block, but can be stepped to the right. Forward 2, a high that's also steppable to the right. And 1+2 is Gatling, which is mostly used as a wall finisher, but sometimes they like to use this after cancelling into a ducking, since the first few hits are -9 and therefore the only safe mid he has in this stance. The full string is -12. What you'll probably have Steam players do is looping forward 2s in this ducking stance, because Steve has a bit of an advantage here. But you can interrupt every option after with down 1 or any 11 frame move. Or you can just parry all of his options if you time it right. To avoid his looping, so that you can just sidestep right the next forward 2, just be aware that his 1 mid can catch you. Also, if you want to interrupt him with 11 frame moves, know that his ducking 2 can high crush. Of course, he can also change his timing by using his extended duck, or he can just cancel a ducking into crouch and mix you up from there. When he extends his ducking by pressing forward, he gets enhanced blue spark versions of his moves, but there's not much that changes about these moves in extended ducking. They're mostly used for timing changes and chip damage. So stand blocking is really your best option versus ducking, because there's no need to duck since he has no low. So this is why you might see Steve players to start using duck cancel into full crouch down forward 1 to start as peekaboo offense, which makes hop kick a really viable option if you want to call them out. If Steve is in heat though, his ducking moves all get enhanced as if they were extended ducks. So if you just stand block, Steve can chip away your health pretty badly by looping his forward 2. So in this case, you might want to interrupt, high crush, or step to the right to avoid this. Now his weave left or right are basically a sidestep from his stances or a neutral even, and it can be extremely annoying to deal with because it takes some labbing on your part to see how you can best catch him with your character's tools. Left weave 1-1 is a wall splitting mid at -13. 1-2 is a mid high that's +3 on block and puts Steve into his Lionheart stance. You'll see this move a lot. Recognizing and ducking this move is one key aspect of beating Steve's online. 1-2-1, his mid variation for 1-2 to beat duck and punish attempts. And guess what? It's a counter launcher at -8 on block. So take your turn whenever you block this, it's super important. 1 forward 1-1, oh boy. Another mid high that's +3 on block. You need to duck this one as well. And lastly, 2-1 is safe mid string at -8 on block. And it's uninterruptible. And Steve can also transition into peekaboo after the first hit, which makes it a really viable entry for peekaboo pressure. Since most Steve players will spam the hell out of 1-2, let's take a closer look here. On block, it's either +3 in Lionheart or -1 on block in neutral, so that's why you will usually see people go into Lionheart, and on hit it's +8 in Lionheart. Secondly, he can also use 1 forward 1-1 to get an advantage in neutral, and a common strat is to use back 1 after, since most players online don't know that this move is +3 on block and need a massive counter hit launcher. But not you, my friend, because you will duck and launch Steve players from now on. Also, we will see the stance in action during some of replays we will look at the end of this guide. Now, luckily, weave right has fewer options, only 3. First, 1-2, which is exactly the same as the left weave 1-2 to get plus frames, but duckable. And he can also go into peekaboo after the first hit. 1-1, again, just the same as in left weave, his mid option to fish for counter hits if you duck and punish. And 2, just like his left weave 1-1, is a mid that splats. Now he can also sway to the back instead to the sides. And here he also has 3 moves. First is 1, a safe mid that's 0 on block and +14 or 15 on hit for ground hit follow-ups. This move is mostly used at the wall, as you'll see in the wall section. 2 is a risky evasive launcher that's -17 on block, but is one wave to make you whiff with big returns. 1+2, another move made for his wall game, so more about that later. Since we're talking about his backsway, a few common backsway setups you should be aware of, where Steve players like to use it most often, are after his up forward 4, his Gatling, up back to 1, Lionheart 1, and there's some other, like he could literally use this even at -9 from any move. So really watch your opponent's habits. Whew. Okay, we went over most of his stances. Do you see now why Steve is so hard to understand for most people? Because let's go back to 2-1 for a second. Let's say Steve goes into flicker afterward. He cannot just do a flicker move. He can also go into duck or weave to make a whiff, or just duck. Or he can go back to neutral quickly. Or he could even just do 2-1 and nothing else, right? 2-1-2 or 2-1 into PKB. You see, this is where Steve becomes a really complex and deep character, and playing as Steve is all about observing the opponent and their timings and habits. And so do you have to adapt by analyzing what the Steve player does. So my advice here, generally, so on block, know your options and your character specific tools. On hit, just block, but don't duck randomly or move, because Steve's slows aren't that scary to risk getting launched, and all his throws from stances are 1+2 breaks. So be ready for them and try not to let Steve players control you easily. Try take the control by annoying them with down 1s and down 4s, and then see how they adapt to plan your next counter. Alright, now we need to cover one more stance. Lionheart is his new stance in Tekken 8. As with the other ones, he can go into weaves or duck cancels or backsways after. One of the most common situations you will see the stance is a manual transitions right at the round start. That's where you probably know this from. The stance itself has only 3 moves. One, a 14 frame homing move that's also a heat engager, only -4 on block. So see if you can check this with a quick low or mid that also tracks his weave options. And also be aware that they could use the backsway to make you whiff, so really see what you can do to cover all the options at once if possible. 2 is 16 frame mid launcher, that's -13 on block. You'll see this move mostly in combos, so if they try to make you whiff. And 1+2 is 18 frame fast high unblockable. Super annoying to deal with, especially at the wall. Now, since I already told you that Steve players like to use this stance to make you whiff, common ways to make use of this are after moves like Albatross 2, down forward 1-2, flicker 1 forward 1 or 1-1 forward 1, extended duck 1, Lionheart 1, peekaboo forward to 1, and flicker back 2 because of the pushback. As I said in the weave section, weave 1+2, left or right doesn't matter, will be one of the most commonly spammed moves online, by far. And Steve will enter Lionheart at +3 on block here. +3 means that he could technically jab or down jab all his Lionheart options, since his fastest one is 14 frames. But of course he could either use his ducking to just go under our jabs, or weaves to beat both jabs and down ones. And since he has an unblockable from his Lionheart, which also beats power crushes, you cannot just be reckless here. Unfortunately, he has 2 other moves where he puts you into the same situation, which are back 1-2 and up back 2. Also, since you're dealing with an unblockable high in this situation and a homing mid heat engager, you either have to duck or challenge. Other transitions you'll see are down back 3-2 or up forward 3-2, especially at the wall, while rising 2-2 and forward 2-2. The good thing here is that these 2 transitions are -6 on block, but +11 on hit. So on block, and if they attack or do nothing, you can just launch Steve with a down forward 2, for example. Because Steve cannot block in this stance. What if they transition into another stance? Well, luckily, a quick mid like down for 1 beats anything he can do after these 2 mid transitions. Okay, now let's go quickly over his key moves, so we can tie everything together. Now first, after his 2-1, he has a second string he will abuse a lot, which is 1-2-1. And sometimes 1-2-1-2, because it splats, and it can punish you if you're trying to interrupt him in between. Now the important thing here is to know that 1-2-1 can go into peekaboo as well, or he can go into ducking, or, you know, his left-right weaves, as well as flicker and his backsway. Now what you most likely see here is that ducking transition, simply because what they like to do is, you know, they do this move, cancel the ducking and see what you're gonna do, like, are you going to attack with jabs, highs, or, you know, being reckless? Because if so, they can just, you know, punish you with while rising 1-2. And this one is also really, like, this move itself here is extremely hard to step As for his weaves after this, you won't see them often, because in this case, they don't really, as you can see, they have like way less evasion. Also, this 1-2-1-2 is -10, but he can make it safe by going into duck. So in this case, again, if you're trying to punish with jabs, he can launch you. Also, 1-2-1 into PKB might be a viable option, since, you know, his 2 can still beat all your jab attempts or, you know, pokes. But it's also -2 on block, so you have way more options of interrupting him. Like, you know, if you're Nina, for example, a quick down forward 4 could interrupt all his options, right? Another thing you should also be aware of is his 1-1-2. This is mostly used as his 10 frame punisher, but it also can go into ducking, weaves, backsway. And if you look at the frames, it's +4 on hit, but if you go into backsway, for example, it's +6. Or even +8 in ducking. This is why this string is also mostly used at the wall, as you'll see. Now, 2-1, 1-1-2, 1-2-1, these are all highs, right? So theoretically, if they're too predictable with these strings, you can just duck and launch Steve, although it's quite hard, because the recovery is usually really quick. But that's why he has things to mix it up, right? Like down for the 1, down for 2-1, which is -3 on block, so be aware, because Steve likes to sidewalk or weave afterward, right? To catch you if you mash anything. Then he has down for 1-2-2, which is basically used whenever you trying to duck down for 1-2 and try to punish him. This will catch you for, you know, for guaranteed hit, for guaranteed follow-up. And then finally he has a last one, which is down for 1-2-1. If you're unlucky, this can get a full counter at launch, so, you know, if you're like ducking and trying to punish him, you could theoretically step his down for 1 to the left, but all his other variations track, so it's usually not worth it unless they just use single down for 1s often. Now another mid variation he has is his forward 2-1, which is a mid-high, so you can duck the last one. But then again, just like with down forward 1, he has extensions to stop you from that. He could do forward 2-1-2, or he can even do forward 2-2, which puts him into Lionheart stance. Also, since Steve steps forward with this move, it also tracks really well. Then 1 down 1 and 1-1 down 1 is also a high or high mid variation. That's 0 on hit, and +6 if you choose to go into flicker. This string can actually be walked left, but again, as you already see, stepping Steve in neutral is not that great. But of course, if he gets predictable with this, you might give it a shot. Next is back 1, pretty much his most iconic move, right, to get counter hits, as well as his new string back 1-2, which you will see often online, which is pretty much the same as this, you know, weaving 1-2 to get plus frames. Of course, again, here as well, you can duck the second, right, but it might be harder. And of course, you can also just do up back 2, which is used as his homing move, especially if you start stepping another key move, which is quarter circle forward 1. If they use back 1, they usually go into flicker right after. And in this case, it's going to be -1 on block and +10 on hit. But again, as we already said, don't attack Steve if he hit you. It's not worth it. And if he uses back 1-2, something they can do is like, you know, loop pressure like this. So it's really important that you try to duck these strings as much as you can. Now, I already mentioned this move, and put the circle forward 1. Probably one of his best mids, because first of all, like other moves, it's -10 on block, but he can choose to go into flicker, and then it's just +3, -3. And you know, from there again, if you attack, he could potentially go into duck, crush you, launch you, whatever, right? So This move is especially good because it has a really great range, right? It wall splats, and especially at the wall, what you will see often is that they try to get a wall split, and then boom, they try to go get another wall split by power crush after you block the first hit, because most people like to press right after they block this move. But here's the thing, this move itself is really steppable to the left. Like, you know, an easy, like a simple step is enough, as you can see. You really have to check what options you have to stop his power crush and his weaving options if possible. Again, a regular throw can be good, a tracking low as well. Just see what your character can do, otherwise it might get nasty, especially at the wall. Next is his Sonic Fang 1+2. You've probably seen this move a lot. It's his 14 frame Punisher, another heat engager. You can also step it to the left quite easily. But sometimes this move, depending on the situation, as you can see here, can still hit you. So yeah, this move is weird. I don't know. Just try different situations and see what your character can do. Otherwise, you might eat a heat engager. Quadricycle forward 2 is often used as Oki tool, especially after, you know, after a knockdown, for example. After Albatross 2, they might run up, boom, do a quadricycle forward 2, go into Peekaboo and start mixing you up from there. But this move is -AT, so make sure to launch it if you block it, and it's also really linear, so it definitely has weaknesses. Another move you will see often is his down forward 2. It's a mid, that's also -10 I believe on block, but to make it safe you can go into ducking and then cancel it. If you mash, he again can, you know, punish you. To stop him from doing anything after, the best thing you can do is to, as soon as you see this move, do a down forward 1 to stop all his options. There's nothing you can do against this. Again, this move as well is really linear, and you can step it to both directions. Last is back 2. This move is really good, especially after, let's say, you know, you with a move, he does a sidestep and boom, he uses back 2, because this move on hit guarantees a Sonic Fang, for example. It's -13 on block, so make sure to punish it. You can also step it, but sometimes it can catch your sidestep left, so yeah, experiment with your character. Now let's talk about his approach. One of the most common things you will see Steve players do to close the gaps is using his Albatross spins into either Albatross 2 or Albatross down 2, a low. Or if they're fancy, you use double spins, or even transition into Peekaboo after a spin. You'll see these all day. It's a great way to approach for the following reasons. Albatross 2 is a heat engager and it wall splats at only -3 on block. Albatross down 2 can be seeable, but Steve players can mess you up by doing 2 spins and making it harder to react correctly. Also, once you block and respect him, he can transition into Peekaboo to start his offense. And note that both these options, Albatross 2 and down 2, can be stepped to the left. Definitely practice blocking the low and reaction, so you're not guessing for your life. While running 2 is +6 on block, but it's linear and slow as hell. If they get too predictable with it, you can step or float them. So, since this move is also really linear, you can see that against Steve's approach, sidestep or sidewalk left can be really effective. That's why higher level Steve players will use ducking to get in safely as it realigns. Be aware of that. Let's take a look at a few of his lows. First of all, his down to 1 is probably his best low in neutral. And similar to down forward 2, this is often cancelled into ducking. So again, even on hit, what you can do is just use down forward 1 to stop all his other options, but what he can actually do is down to 1 2. And if you use any move, you will get counter hit, so not so cool. But this last move is a heist, so you could also just duck and launch him for it. Just be aware that this move is -2 on block, And this is a perfect opportunity again for Steve to use his weave and make you whiff. Also, this low tracks really well, so it's pretty much impossible to step. Then he has down one, a low that puts him into crouch. You might see this here and there, but not as often because it's minus 13, so people like Kazuya could launch him. And it's also minus 2 on hit, but you could expect, while rising 1-2 or a throw after down back 2, another chunkier low, which is actually plus 1 on hit and only minus 12 on block. This one is walkable to both sides, but it high crushes, so you might use it sometimes to go under your strings. Then there's one more string, which is back 1, down 2, 1. You might see this especially lower levels. The best thing here is to just low parry the second hit, because if you block the low, you cannot interrupt the last mid. So your best choice is, or your best option is to really learn to low parry the second hit, because if you do, you also avoid his back 1, 2. So basically by ducking you beat 2 options. Let's get to the most disgusting part, which is Steve's wall game. This is where Steve shines, because it's where using down back 3-2s, backsway throws, he's unblockable, and weave options to get a splat really start to become insanely effective and painful. But let's start with one of the most common options you will see at the wall, which is peekaboo back 1-1-2-1. The second hit is a high, but if you mess up, you'll eat the wall string. Expect this a lot at the wall, as it's only as the full string is only minus 3 on block, and a lot of Steve players love to abuse power crush afterward to get a wall split. So seriously, a regular homing throw is a very viable option here to avoid weaves and his power crush. Or if you have a tracking low, or if you have a good tracking low, you can also use it to avoid this mix. Again, just check if it also avoids the weaves. If not, see if you can do anything else. Interestingly enough, Nina's down 3 loses against this right weave in this situation as well, but doing a quick sidestep can solve this. And if quick enough, I can still beat the power crush as well. So experiment with your character and see what's best to do in this situation. Okay, now let's get to the juicy part of the wall game, his backsway throw. This is where it becomes ugly, because Steve can backsway into a 1+2 throw that pushes you against the wall and guarantees him a 1-1-2 punish. But if Steve grabs you while you both stand next to a wall and pushes you to the side, he can get a full wall split with quarter cycle forward 1. He can also turn you around completely to get a back 1-2 or 2-2 on you for free. Or he could, for example, use this after a heat engager to move you to the side to the wall and get a full combo, which is nasty. Now, but this becomes even nastier if you realize that after a guaranteed 1-1-2, he can go into another backsway into another throw. Or he can mix it up with his backsway 1 mid, which is 0 on block, but leaves you in crouch, and on hit it's plus 14 or 15 for another guaranteed follow-up. Holy smokes. To make it even more complex, he can also go into 1-1-2, ducking to threaten a counter hit ducking 1, which is nasty because you cannot step his ducking on hit, unless he goes into his extended ducking stance to vary his timing. And of course, the best part, he still has his unblockable, which puts it in a very similar situations. For example, many Steve players online like to use 2-2 after unblockable at the wall, and then follow up with quarter cycle 1 to get wall split. Again, you can step quarter cycle forward 1 to the left, or, which is even more common, down back 3-2 at the wall, which is a low high string that now can't be backdash because you're at the wall, and it puts you into an instant 50-50 situation at the wall because he's at plus 8. Now you need to guess if they use the unblockable, the throw, or even a line hard 1 that's a heat engager. Or if he's already in heat, he can also go into a heat dash after line hard 1 to again put you in a mix-up situation at the wall. And of course, to make it even more demanding on you, he can go into his weave 1-2 for example at any time to fish for another plus frames, or heck, he can even use weave or back sway again. Also note, down back 3-2 into line hard 1, of course, is a frame tap, and you cannot power crush this. You can parry it, which is really good to know, and it's one way you, especially if they're in heat, that might get you out of the situation, but really watch their habits and if they like to go for a line hard 1 or whatever, or if they like to go into weave 1-2 to get another plus frame situation. Like, really watch their habits. Also note that his unblockable and his backsway throw both beat power crushes, so it's really not easy to get out of this situation either. It's a pure guessing, situation, to be honest. Now with Okizeme. A few different situations after combos at the wall or after grabs we'll cover in this section. Let's start with this combo Oki. In heat, Steve gets access to 2 clinch grabs that you can break with either 1 or 2. He also gets access to his ducking moves in this stance. During a combo, you will see a Steve player end his combo with either ducking 1 or weave 1-2. Then, if they're in heat, what they love to do is go into this ducking heat stance to catch your tech roll with a clinch grab and get you into an instant 50-50 grab game. Usually, most thieves will go for the 2 options in the open because it's 50 damage. On the other hand, if you're at the wall, they might choose the 1 option to get a wall split and basically delete 50% of your health. So take a strategic guess, since the 2-1 grab switches sides, but Steve players want you at the wall. Now, to beat this, you can either stay on the ground, tech roll and duck, or use a wake up or spring kick. But if you do, Steve can use his extended ducking down forward 2 to hit you grounded or launch you ducking after the tech roll, or to beat wake up kicks, he can use ducking, the extended ducking 1 to get a float or even a counter launch. Next, his wall Oki. Now, the same Oki can be used after wall combo. A common combo ender is his forward 2-2 1+2, and then going into the clinch mix again. Then again, if you stay grounded, they can use the extended duck 2 to hit you, or duck 1 to beat wake up kicks. Also in this case, if you hold back after this combo, you could also interrupt his duck mix with a down jab or even a rage art. But to counter this, Steve can use his quadricycle forward 2 or Sonic Fang, which can be a 50-50 as well after the forward 2-2 1+2 ender. As you see, Steve is disgusting at the wall, not gonna lie. One more common wall combo ender you'll see is Tornado, 2-1 forward into Peekaboo up forward 2. And then right after, what they like to do is go into an albatross spin, and then either, use the albatross mid or low, or go into Peekaboo for throw, for example. So the best thing here is, if you can block the albatross low on a reaction, be ready for that. If they use the albatross mid, watch out for their manual line hard transition, or a weave for example, and for the grab, just be ready for the 1+2 grab. Lastly, there are a few common grab situations you should know to not wake up the wrong way. First is his up forward 1+2 command throw. If you hold back afterward, they can hit you with Sonic Fang. Not really good. So instead, you can tap up, block and punish. But then of course, they could mix you up with, for example, quadricycle forward 2 instead. Similar to up forward 1+2, 2+4 is a common Oki grab. If you wake up or hold back, 1+2 will hit you. Or if you tap up and block, back 2 can also catch you. In this case, I would stay grounded first to avoid getting hit and then see how they adapt afterward. Another throw you will see a lot is his Peekaboo throw. And if they run up and you wake up by tapping up, their down forward 1 will catch you. So it's better to hold back to create enough distance so it cannot catch you. I'm pretty sure there's more different and unique Oki setups, but I'd say these here are the most important ones to start with. And as you get better and face better Steve players, just take notes on what they're doing and keep learning. Now, with everything learned so far, let's take a quick look at this analysis breakdown. So you see, he already uses 2-1. The approach move, right? Again, no. See here, 2-1 again, and he goes into Peekaboo. See what I did? I interrupted him with the 10 frames, which wasn't the best choice, but again, it worked. We know that, right?
Over here! You're finished!
Common flowchart from Nina.
Nice try.
Oh man, again.
Round 3. Fight.
You see, I interrupted his 2-1s perfectly. Let's see what he does next time. Again, he didn't adapt, but now, the next time, he probably will. Not really. But now, at least I do the step. And I still avoid his string, right?
It's over. No more playing around. 8 years. Finish. 5. You're finished.
As you see, his weave
Round 4.
avoided my down 4, so I need to lap this more with my character.
You're finished.
You saw back 1 into ducking, and now he starts his forward 2 loops, which you can sidestep, right? Not optimally punished, but hey, at least I did it. Another flowchart. Keeps on working. As you see now, he starts to adapt, right? He just stopped after the first forward 2, and then he did 2-1 into up forward 2, because he assumed I will do another down 1, right, to launch me. Again, we know about that, right? I could have parried him, but that's risky. Ouch.
Final round. Fight.
For whatever reason, it tracked, but well, I guess that happens. Messed up my punish.
Yeah. No more playing around. Done.
You saw that move, the weave forward 1 forward 1-1, didn't duck it, could have launched him and won the game, but well, I'm still learning. But yeah, as you saw, a lot of these things we talked about are definitely here. It just takes a while to get used to it, and of course every Steve player is a bit different, so after a while this will get second nature and you'll encounter a lot of Steves you will meet online and or offline or wherever you play. And yeah, let me know if you have any requests for characters. I'm going to do I'm 100% going to do more of these characters, because I do this mostly for myself, since I lack the matchup knowledge for many characters as well, and it's really what's necessary if you wanna, you know, compete at like Tekken God ranks and above. So Also, if you have any further questions about Steve, let me know. And yeah, with that being said, Merry Christmas.